Good morning. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Today, I'm going to be going through kind of a meditation, specifically contemplative prayer, and inviting you to kind of see how I might do this in one of the ways. I've had a lot of people tell me that they've never meditated or they've never done contemplative prayer before, and so I thought it'd be kind of helpful for you to see one of the ways that I find really helpful. So the first thing, as you get going, find something comfortable. So some of us like to sit on the floor. Sorry for the lighting getting all crazy. I have this little cushion that I use sometimes, but if not, I like to sit on the floor. But the key with this is figuring out what's comfortable. So today I'm using that. But any pillow will do if you're one of those people that like your sit bones don't like to be on a hard surface. And then kind of pay attention to your body. Like I'm noticing that I can feel the stuff in my pockets, so I'm going to get rid of my pocket knife and my keys and everything. Anything that can kind of distract you. And the purpose behind this, as we're looking at meditation, is to find a place of silence. And so the scripture that inspires that today, or inspires me for this, to finding this silence, is how Elijah met God at Mount Horeb. So this comes from 1 Kings 19, verses 11 through 12. He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. You may have heard this passage before. One of the reasons I wanted this to be part of my meditation today is because it's a fairly well-known passage. The other was that in reading my John Wesley Study Bible, at the bottom it talks about meeting God in Scripture. And so this comes from the John Wesley Study Bible. "Beware, familiarity with the Bible can induce careless reading. Knowing a story can be a trigger to not reading it. Accept an invitation to try reading with the eyes of Jesus. The very heart of the Bible is about meeting God in uncounted ways with uncounted consequences. So it is wise for us to slow down and encounter the text with an expectation that we, too, may experience God in new and future-giving ways. We, too, may learn anew about the inescapable wonder of God's prevenient grace that will find us, feed us, and employ us." So I have found this very true for myself, that the more familiar a passage, the more the temptation is to kind of skip over it and go, "Oh yeah, I remember that," and then get to writing the sermon or creating the devotion. And so I read this through a second time and realized that it was the word of the Lord that was already sharing that God's presence would be made. And that was something I hadn't thought about. I guess in my head I'd always figured that was an angel, that was a messenger. But it does say in verse 9, "Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, 'What are you doing here, Elijah?' He answered, 'I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take away.'" So Elijah's already heard God, and this is that God is going to pass by. And some of the most profound moments in life are when we feel God's passing by. I think of them as these liminal space, the space in between eternity and our world. Sometimes you can sense that while holding a newborn baby. There's something beautiful about that. Sometimes it's in the midst of being with someone as they pass. Sometimes it can be a beautiful worship moment or a moment of standing out in the midst of a starry night, noticing how small we really are. But anyway, as we today is just kind of wanted to think about mindfulness. And so what we're going to do is kind of show you how I would do this. And if you're sitting in a chair, one of the things that I found incredibly helpful is to have your feet on the ground. I'm not entirely sure. There's some great writings about being rooted in the earth and that connection. I'm not saying that's not true, but what I have noticed is I think our body flows differently, the energy and movement, the blood flows differently when we sit on one leg or even cross our legs while we're sitting in a chair. So I'd recommend you put both feet on the ground if that's possible for you, or if it's comfortable for you. That's the other thing. If it causes pain, that is counter to what we're trying to do right now. There's a whole series of meditations on pain on purpose, but we're not going to be doing that today. Right. So sit as you're comfortable, and then what we're going to do this time, I'm just going to kind of share with you what I'm doing. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to do the meditation. I'm just going to say out loud what is working for me, what I'm doing, and what I'm focusing on. Because what I'm going to try and do is reach a sense of body silence, and then a sense of internal silence, and try and let my mind be quiet. So you are welcome to close your eyes and join me in this time as well. Okay. I start with a few deep breaths. In for 4, hold for 7, exhale through pursed lips for 8. With each breath, I try and hold them a little longer. As I do this, I try and let the stress melt from me as I exhale, relaxing my shoulders, letting them sink down and rest. I notice my back, and there seems to be some tension there, so I'm going to move little bits of my back at a time until I find a spot where it feels as though the weight of my shoulders goes all the way into my sit bones. For me, then I can feel my neck, so I'm going to bring my attention to my neck, move it around a little bit, and imagine that tension flowing out with the breath. I'm going to pay attention to my face. Am I making any expression? Is there a need to relax my brow or my cheeks? Just kind of come to a neutralness. Whatever resting face we have, notice my arms. They feel relaxed, not tense. And my legs. I feel a little bit of pressure on my ankles from the way I'm sitting, so I'm going to just shift my body weight back just a little bit. And then readjust my spine so that it continues to have the weight move down from my head through my sit bones. I have a tendency to shrug up my shoulders, and so I return my attention to that, relaxing my upper back. I feel pretty relaxed right now, so I'm just going to continue to listen. Depending on what's going on around you in the future, a white noise machine or headphones with relaxing music might be a good idea. If a thought drifts into your head, acknowledge it as you would an old friend, and allow it to pass by as the wind does. If you feel discomfort as you sit, move your body slightly to try to alleviate that tension. Seeing if you can allow your spine to take the weight, or if there's a need to relax a certain part of your body. And we're listening for God in the sheer silence. continue this for as long as it feels peaceful to you. Start by opening your eyes, looking around, moving again. And this is a great thing to do daily. The more stressed you feel, the more important it is to stop. Closing our eyes disengages that. And a lot of these different practices that I've shared, from the body awareness to the breathing, are designed to help our mind rest. So if anxiety is something that is high for you this time of year, or any day, even something as simple as closing your eyes for 10 minutes can refresh your brain. And one of the things that I always found helpful was that you don't need to sleep to rest. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed, just closing your eyes for 10 to 15 minutes, even if you don't sleep whatsoever, helps your brain to reset. Learned that in the midst of concussion treatments. So my hope for you today is that you would find a moment to listen for God's voice in the sheer silence. I hope this was a blessing for you today.